Welcome to Beyond Film School, where I teach you all about the film industry. I'm Amber, and in this video, I'm going to tell you my story and everything you need to know about getting into DGA, the Directors Guild of America. Strap in, folks, because I'm going to give you a ton of information. I'm going to give you my path and my story about how I got into the DGA, and I'm hoping to ease some confusion if you are also an aspiring AD, an assistant director trying to get into the DGA. Because, whew, Lord knows it has been a roller coaster ride of me finally getting here and being in DGA. Just covering a little bit of history here, the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, is an organization created in 1936. Dare I say, union that protects the creative and economic rights of its members. Currently, there are around 20,000 members from the filming of this video. Members include directors, unit production managers, location managers, first assistant directors, second assistant directors. You also have production associates as well. I love being part of the DGA because it guarantees certain rates that I get. I'm going to get certain residuals when I'm a first and a key second. Of course, you have health insurance as well. That is a huge one for me, and also a pension plan. So there's really cool seminars, there's committees you can join. It's really, really great. There are a lot of benefits of being in the DGA. So let's just start with how long it took for me to get into the DGA. Now, for my lovely subscribers, hi guys. You may know my film journey, but if you're new to my channel, in which case, welcome. Just know that before I was on the AD track, I worked in the camera department for a number of years. So the timing that I'm going to talk about does not include the time I spent before pursuing the assistant director track. I spent a number of years in the camera department and gripping and putting up lights and doing all sorts of weird things before actually pursuing the AD department. So just know that that's not included in that timing. In November of 2011, that is when I officially moved to New York City to start finding PA work and work my way up to be an AD. From November of 2011 to February of 2022, when I finally got into the DGA, that's a little over 10 years. It's like 10 years and a month. But wait, that's not including all the years that I wasn't really working in film. There were a lot of years in there where I was an editor. I worked for a distribution company. I was a master control operator at a TV station. So there was a lot of years and time where I kind of just lost track. I was just trying to survive in New York City and New Jersey and just trying to hold on to my AD dreams for dear life. So if I were to take about 3 years out of this, 3.5 years, it took about 6.5 years to really pursue, time-wise, and to collect all my days needed to get into the DGA. But in reality, it did take over 10 years. And then I have researched this a lot, and a lot of people have, it took 10 years to do it. There are some people out there that have done it in 3 years. But in reality, for me, it took 10.5 years. And I know that is a story for many, many others who didn't do the DGA training program. And, there's not a lot of shortcuts to get into the DGA. So it can take 6 to 10 years to do it. From 2015 to about 2018, I was doing a lot of day playing. I was an additional set PA. I was also being an assistant director in the indie world. So I was doing many, many short films. I was doing feature films, music videos, commercials, anything I could be an AD on, I was doing it at the same time of me being a set PA on union set. So I was doing both worlds at the same time. And there was a time where I walked away from being an additional PA for a while because I got sick of being an additional PA, and then I just kind of went all in on being an indie AD. So I was doing it at the same time. I was honing my skills as an AD, not really getting any credit for it in the union world because people only saw me as a PA, but I was doing the both worlds at the same time, while doing the same thing at the same time from 2015 to 2018, and even up until really the pandemic, I was also a barista on the side. So while trying to day play as a PA, do indie AD work, I was also a barista on the weekends and just picking up shifts, obviously to kind of pay the bills. So I had 2 part-time jobs. I had 2 cafes, and finally, when I started to get the Monday through Friday work, when I was a staff PA, I worked on the weekends. I still kept that job. For me, 2020, it was kind of a pause. I couldn't build the days, obviously, because we were in lockdown and we were out of work for 7 months before getting back on set. At least I was out of work for 7 months. Some people were out of work longer, some people were shorter. I think I was out of work from March of 2020, the 13th. Actually, Friday the 13th was our last shooting day, which is kind of crazy. And I was out of work until October, and I did a feature film as an AD in Rochester, and then after that I was on The Equalizer for the first season. During those 7 months where I wasn't working, I really did a lot of inside work for me, figured out all my problems and all of that, because I feel like when you're trying to achieve certain things, you are gonna have like a lot of your demons holding you back. There's like imposter syndrome, like good enough, like that self-worth issue. I think I dealt with self-worth issues for such a long time when it came to this. And also just thinking about like, I'm just this poor girl from Buffalo, like, do I deserve to get out of poverty? And am I ready to give up the struggle? Because I think there's that weird thing where, you know, people get addicted to hustling and grinding and having something and having that challenge in front of them and just struggling. And I think I had to come to terms with like, you don't have to struggle. You don't have to go through that. So that was a lot of growth during the pandemic. So it really took a lot of mental work to catch up to the life I was working towards, and also trying to convince myself that I deserved it. Soon as I got out of lockdown, I was like working nonstop. I think I worked nonstop until actually getting into the DGA. So I worked from October of 2020 all the way up until February of 2022 nonstop. And even afterwards too, I had a job lined up right after that. I think I went from like very, very slow, like very slow progression to like fast tracking, like as soon as I got everything aligned. The average is like 6 to 7 years from like day one of you being a sub PA to you getting into the DGA. Could take 6 to 7 years. Shit happens. Life stuff happens. So sometimes you have to like take a pause. And obviously with strikes going on all the time, the one we just had this previous year, that is going to affect the time it takes. Maybe you have an injury. That's going to affect the time it takes. There are certain things that are going to hold you back from, you know, maybe are you mentally ready for this thing? I have heard of some people doing it in 3 years, which is like, that is taking every single gig that you can. That is jumping from like overnight right to a 7 a.m. shoot, like no sleep. I have heard of ADs like killing themselves as PAs. They were just killing themselves to get their days to submit their book into the DGA. So why does it take so long? If you are a SEP PA using SEP PA days to get into the DGA, you are going to be using the Commercial Qualifying List. 620 days is your target if you are a SEP PA that wants to use SEP PA days toward the Commercial Qualifying List. And all this information is going to be below for you. I'll have the links below so you can look for yourself. You can see all the requirements that are there. It is mapped out. It is also very confusing. I know when you're hearing this, you're like, what is this? In order to be a DGA AD, you have to be on the qualifying list, and then you also have to be a member of the DGA, and they're two separate things. So the qualifying list is what you are going to submit your book for. And in order to do that, you need 600 SEP PA days to qualify on the Commercial Qualifying List. We call it just the QL. Getting to the 600 days is so grueling. It can take so long, and you have to do more than 600 days, because what they make you do is they make you submit 620 days to make sure that if you submit something that doesn't count, they can say, okay, well, we have extra days that we can count, and hopefully they don't have to reject you and you have to submit your book all again. Now, let's talk about the DGA book you have to compile in order to get on the qualifications list, aka the QL. This is the book I am talking about. This is large, lovely. I have 3 of these. So in order to submit all the days, I used a legal-sized 3-inch binder. This is legal size. Now, you can use the letter size, like the 8x10 or 8x11 size, but then like your call sheets are going to hang out, because all call sheets and PRs and all of that are going to be legal sized, so and they're gonna hang out. Seeing that would drive me literally crazy, so I got a legal size binder. And the binders that I use, I'll have the link below for you, because I actually send this as gifts to PA friends of mine that are actually putting their book together, because it's expensive. They're like $30 each or something like that. You can get like 2 for $28, I think. It fluctuates. The price fluctuates for some reason, but I'll leave the link below for you for that. That's an Amazon affiliate link and no extra cost to you, but it just makes your job easier trying to find what binders to use. The first thing I'm gonna say to you, if you have an inkling of being an AD in the DGA, like, you know what, that might be for me, save everything. everything, every call sheet, every pay stub, every check that was written to you, everything that is given to you as payment or a contract or a deal memo, save it all. I cannot stress that enough. Save everything. I just had a big crate where I just kept compiling all my stuff, all my pay stubs, everything just went into this big giant like milk crate that I had. Make sure you have a spot designated to save all your paperwork. Before I get into what counts and what doesn't, you must call the number that I'm going to give you in the description. And you cannot submit your book until you actually call these people who are the ones that are going to be checking your book and making sure that these days count. You have to call them and say, hey, I'm thinking about submitting my book in 6 months. What do I do? You have to call them. It is a must. They will not take your book unless you call them first. But just so you know, like you have to call them first before you think of submitting anything. It's not an email. It's not like you can just text them. You must call the office and talk to someone and like go over it. And I remember this held me back for like at least a couple months because I was like kind of afraid of like, oh, what do I have to do? Because I knew it was going to be a massive undertaking and I didn't really want to, first of all, I don't like talking on the phone. I don't like talking on the phone. So that might be you, but they are really, really nice and they are going to tell you every detail of what you need. I know this video might be helping you, but they are going to be the end all be all say so about what counts in your book and what doesn't. I can give you an idea, but they are going to be the ones to say yay or nay, and they're going to be so detailed. And I remember my first call with them, I was on the phone with them for about like half an hour, I think, and I was like writing crazy notes. I was like, okay, this doesn't count, and they talk slow enough so you can actually write this stuff down. Or I mean, if you have an app on your phone to record the phone call, then do it, because you're going to want to go back and think, what did she say? So just make sure that a call to this office, the phone number I leave for you, for the commercial QL, for PAs, if you're using PA days, you have to call that number. And just a quick disclosure here, this is for DGA East, this is not for West. So this is East. West Coast has their own rules, qualifications. They have a very different system than the East Coast. So this is strictly for DGA East. Again, don't waste your time until you call them. They are not going to look at your book until you actually have a conversation with them. So I'm going to start with what doesn't count. Student films do not count. MultiCam shoots do not count. These are your shoots that are happening in like a studio setting, not at the stage, but a studio setting where you have like 3 broadcast cameras. Those types of projects do not count. Short films do not count. I worked on so many short films and none of those days counted. Call sheets with missing info do not count. Perfect example of this is I worked on a show for NBC. There was a couple days where there was a blue revise that went out. Key second AD didn't put anyone's time next to their names, so those days did not count for me. That's not my fault. It was an official call sheet. My name was on the call sheet, but because there were no times, there was no end times, technically we weren't there, and I didn't have a PR to prove it. So if there is a situation where you're like, this is questionable, make sure you get the PR to back it up. If there's a call sheet where a director's name is missing, does not count. If there's a call sheet where there's AD's names missing, does not count. Now, if there's a call sheet where your name is missing, but you did the day, perfect examples, this is where maybe you were a rush called PA and you were filling in for someone that fell ill. Or it might have been a TBD where they didn't know what the name, they didn't put the name in yet for you to be on the call sheet. If it is a TBD, you need to highlight the TBD and submit a PR to prove that you were there. So that also can be pretty frustrating when you're first starting out, because you might do a lot of days where you're rush called in and your name isn't on the call sheet. And as a set PA, additional set PA, it could be pretty tough for you to get the PRs. So these days might not count for you. Call sheets that are not accompanied by the pay stub. Say you work 1 week on, I don't know, Blue Bloods and you are missing your pay stub. Well, those days are not going to count. You need to have proof of payment. Also, projects that are pro bono, those free gigs that you did, if you did not get paid, those days do not count. Also, live TV and photo shoots also don't count. On call sheets where I was listed as the background PA doing fittings for background, those days did not count. Also, days that you do in the office as an office PA, those days do not count. If you're doing prep days and you are paid for those prep days where you might have a pay stub but no call sheet, those days do not count. So what does count? Now, when I was starting to like, okay, I want to get into DGA, like what counts, what doesn't count? And a lot of people are like, oh, indie stuff does not count. And I was like, well, if I'm a first AD, maybe it does. I submitted all those days and they counted. Every first AD feature day that I had, that counted as long as I had a call sheet, there was a PR, and I submitted my pay with that. I was told that anything I did in the indie world, non-union, did not count.
Rumors.
Pilots for TV, those count. Feature films, those count. Independent features count as well. The only thing with that is that it had to be an independent feature that was released and there was a way for them to look it up, like maybe it was seen on Amazon somewhere, but they had to make sure that it was legit. Indie commercials also count. Music videos are the only ones that I'm not sure of because I didn't really do a music video. I've done a few, but none that had a call sheet and anything that kind of like any real proof of payment. So music videos are the only thing I'm not sure about. Also, you must prove that you were paid from these projects. There was one feature I did when I was in Indie First AD where I had a deal memo, I had a contract, and I put that deal memo contract, I had all the PRs, I had all the call sheets, and I put that in the book, and they didn't count any of those days. And what they wanted to see was my actual check, the actual check that that person wrote me. So it wasn't a payroll company, so I couldn't give them my pay stub. So because of that, I was like, oh my goodness, by the grace of God, I don't know why, I kept all the checks these people wrote me through all the years. Now we're talking like 4 years later after a feature was shot. I kept all the checks that were written to me. I don't know why. Maybe the gods were looking out for me, my spirit guides or something, but I kept those checks. So keep, and then when I say keep everything, I literally mean keep everything that if someone writes you a personal check, make sure they put first AD services or set PA services or whatever it is to prove that that is connected to that project. There was also another project that I did where I was a first AD and they did payroll, but they paid me through a 1099 and I gave them my 1099 tax slip and that didn't count. I had to still get the physical check that they wanted, and luckily I had a copy of that somewhere. Like, it's so crazy that I kept my checks, but 1099 tax forms don't count, but if you have them, submit them. Maybe they might take it if maybe I had info missing on it or something, but either way, official documents, sometimes they don't count. I don't know why, but the best thing to do is to make sure that you submit more info if you have it. If you have a 1099 and you have the check and you have a PR and a call sheet and all of it, like, submit more info. Just submit more info. It's safer that way. The day is more likely to count. All the forms you're going to need are going to be at that link I give you below, the Commercial QL list. When you assemble your book, you're going to start with the oldest first. So in book one, at the beginning of book one is going to be your oldest thing, and you're going to go in chronological order. You're going to separate them out by TV show. So for example, if you have maybe a month where you're like bouncing around each show, you're just going to put all of each show together. So maybe it's Blue Bloods, and then you have FBI, and then you have Equalizer. Well, maybe you might have been bouncing around, but you want to keep each show together if you're working on a lot of TV shows. Now, for TV shows, you want to make sure you are separating them by seasons because technically those are like different entities. Between each show in your book is going to be like a colorful piece of paper that divides. So it's just trying to make sure that you're organizing your book so they can quickly get through it because they're going through each page. There's no like electronic system that goes through that. They're going through each page, they're checking that your name's on it, they're checking the information, and they're double checking information like on the internet and stuff. So it has to be organized, and if it's not organized, they won't look at your book. Compiling my book took me days. It took me so long. Every time I had like a couple of free days, I would take a few hours in that day writing the contact form and the contact list. If you have some off time, definitely do it. Or if you want to do like one show or 2 shows a weekend or however long each, because I had a lot of days where there was like, I did 2 days on this and then 3 days on this and then 1 day here. And it was like contact sheet after contact sheet at the beginning of each project. It was a lot. If your book gets rejected, they will write out all the things that you need to do to fix it, or maybe you need to find some information. They'll tell you what the problem is, which each day that doesn't count. They're going to give you a list of issues. I don't know if you guys can see. They're going to give you a nice list of issues that you can look at, go through your days and figure out like what is the problem with each thing that doesn't count. You have to submit 620 days. Now, that is 20 days of a buffer in case some things don't count. I actually submitted 635 days, but then they rejected 100 of those days, which I was like, that hit me like a ton of bricks. So I went back in, figured out what was wrong, tried to fix things, and then I got to 580 days. I was 40 days shy of their requirement of 620 days. So I had to actually wait for another job to make those days and to get my book to count. After compiling my book and it got rejected, during the time that it was rejected and I was fixing all the things, I got bumped up on a job in Connecticut, and unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that you can bump up a female in the New York area. I didn't know that there was an affirmative action exception to let females in and you be able to be an AD on a union shoot without being in DGA. So thankfully, that I got my first day before I was even in the DGA, so that's really awesome. The DGA contracts office called me. They're like trying to confirm my address, making sure that I was actually allowed to be bumped up, because if not, the production would have got fined a lot of money for doing what they did if I wasn't like legitimately from that area. Because I did my first day as a DGA AD, there was a time crunch, because once you do your first day, you are allowed to apply to the DGA. So you can't technically work without being on the qualifications list. So that's usually your first priority, is getting on the QL. So you're on the qualifications list. Once you're on the qualifications list, you have to do your first day. And then once you do your first day as an AD, then you're allowed to apply to the DGA to be a member. You need your first day in order for that to happen. You need your first contract in order for that to happen. So I was like putting my application together while also resubmitting my book to the QL list to make sure I qualified to work. I had to start my application for the DGA, and that application wasn't that long. I needed 3 DGA members to endorse my application, and then the payment. So that's when the payment people start calling you. I think his name was Bill, actually. Bill and Barbara. Barbara was contracts and Bill was the guy who was setting up your payment plan. So it was like $7,600. Yes, I heard that amount and I was like, oh my God, this is so much money. And when you're a PA, you look at that amount and you're like, I don't have this money. But thankfully I did a really great AD gig just right before this happened in December, and I was able to bank some money. So I put $2,000 down, and then the rest of that money was a payment plan for the next year, and you're able to pay that monthly. After that, there's gonna be a safety training that you're gonna have to do as well. Okay, so submitted my application, figured out the initiation fee, the payment plan, resubmitted my book, got on the QL. Am I in the DGA yet? Not yet. Even did the safety training and you're not in yet. Because then what they do is they have to vote you in. The AD UPM Council of the DGA votes on new members. They have to vote you in. And then just right around my birthday, they actually voted me in, and I found out February 2nd of 2022. So 222022, which is kind of crazy, where I feel like that's kind of like good luck. So yeah, I was voted in right around my birthday. After you get into DGA, you get a really cool packet. I love my packet. And I thought that the DGA card was like a myth for some reason, but you get a DGA card, and I love the DGA card. It's so dope. And you get a new one every year with a new year on it, your name on it, and your like ID number on it. There's a lot of like fear when it comes to joining the DGA because it is complicated. As you have watched this video, you're like, what is she saying? There's a lot of different things. There's like QL, application, initiation fee, safety training. There's a lot of things, and this counts and this doesn't count. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and I know it's very, very confusing, but all of that can be eliminated if you just call the number that I give you in the description. Call them, let them know that you're on this track, and what do you need? What do you need to submit for a DGA book, and like what is the process? Also, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to email me at beyondfilmschool@gmail.com if you have questions, because it is a very, very complicated process. But like I said before, if you are trying to submit your book, you need to talk to them, not me. You join the DGA when you are ready to join the DGA, because I definitely was in that spot where I was wondering did I have enough contacts in the union, in the DGA, to actually get me AD work? Because what happens is like, all your dreams don't just come true once you're in the DGA. You still have to grind, because it depends on your network. When you're in the DGA, you are not guaranteed work. They don't find work for you. That depends on your contacts and your network. You may think it's like, yes, I did it, and I did feel a sense of release that I did all this stuff to get in. But once you're in, you still have to work. You are pretty much going back to zero in a way, because you're gonna go back to like day playing as an AD and then working your way up that way. And some people who are in the DGA as ADs and they're just starting out, they'll PA at the same time and like try and grab every AD day that they can. And they'll try and get bump up days where they get bumped up to the second or additional AD. So the grind doesn't stop. The work still has to be done once you're in. There's no guarantee of work. People who are in the indie film world as ADs, if you don't have any union contacts, it does make it harder for you to work. And a lot of people who are in the DGA tell potential members that if you don't have a union contact, it is going to be hard for you to get union work. So that was something that I made a decision. I was like, okay, I have to work my way up in the union world, because I did walk away for a while and I was like really gung-ho about the indie world. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be an AD in the union one day, but then I didn't know any people that would hire me. You're a young AD in DGA, so you need to know other ADs in the DGA to get you that work, because they're the ones that are going to hire you. You can't just like roll up and be like, hire me. You start day playing all over again as an AD. The plus side to it is that you get really, really good money. You don't probably have to grind as hard. You don't have to work every single day, because one AD day equals like 1 week of PAing. It's crazy, especially if you're being like a second. Maybe you might have to do 2 days a week if you're an additional second. And all those rates are public for you to look at dga.org. You can go right on that website and you can look at all the rates that there are, the current contract. Becoming a DGA member is definitely life-changing. I mean, it was for me, and I remember talking to Barbara, the DGA contracts woman. She was like, congratulations, this changes your life. And I was like, oh my God, I almost cried on the phone. So it is really life-changing. It is hard to get to, but I mean, if it's not hard, everyone, would do it. You know what I mean? If you're an aspiring AD, Godspeed. It is a lot of work that you have to do. I hope this video helped. It is a long process, but it's definitely worth it. And it's kind of cool to go to like the annual DGA meeting and know that like Christopher Nolan is like a fellow member. My aspiring ADs out there, good luck. And like I said before, you can always email me, beyondfilmschool@gmail.com, if you have any questions, but make sure you contact the people at the number below if you're trying to submit your book.